All right, guys, welcome back to a new episode of the Back Check Podcast. I'm here with Cam today, and with the NHL Draft Lottery coming to an end, we do know the top 10 picks in the draft and what order they will be in, and what teams have each pick. So we're gonna only go over the top 10. So number 10 is going to go to the Ottawa Senators. Number 9 is the Canucks. 8 will be the Kings. 7 is the Sharks. 6 is the Red Wings. 5 is the Blue Jackets. 4 is the Devils. 3 is the Ducks. 2 is the Seattle Kraken, the newest team in the league. And number 1 is the Buffalo Sabres. And the last time the Sabres had the first overall pick, they used to select Rasmus Dahlin in the 2018 NHL Draft. So currently, we're looking into this, and the number 1 pick is projected to be Owen Powers from Michigan. Or Owen Power, excuse me. He's supposed to be projected to be the number 1 overall pick. Another good guy in there you might think of is Luke Hughes, brother of Jack and Quinn Hughes. He's also supposed to be considered maybe a number 1 pick. And Matthew Bernier is the other guy who could be presented as potentially a number 1 pick in the NHL Entry Draft. So Cam and I are going to give our picks. So the Buffalo Sabres are on the clock, and here's how it's going to go. So basically, me and Cam, even if we have the same player for the first overall pick, we're not going to really discuss who we're picking. We're mostly going to discuss why we're picking these guys. And, that we're going to go from there. So first overall pick, this really shouldn't be that hard to tell. But Cam, you're going to tell us first, who do you think is the number 1 pick of the 2021 NHL Entry Draft this year?
Kevin Adams is going to select Owen Power. Especially Buffalo, a team starved for defense. You look at a guy like Owen Power, he has great size, great mobility for a big man, and he's a perfect cornerstone with Rasmus Dahlin to build your blue line for years to come. So now you have Rasmus Dahlin and you have Owen Power. I think it's a no-brainer for Kevin Adams, and it should be the easiest draft pick of his life.
Yeah, and it's a safe and a logical pick. He also might be a bit tough to sell in Buffalo, I feel. The Sabres haven't been able to score in a decade, even though they have probably one of the greatest players in the league right now in Jack Eichel, who's probably going to be shipped off by the end of this summer. They have a thin pipeline as well. They desperately need more talented forwards, but they can make a defensive powerhouse with power. If I'm not intended, he's 6'6", he's 213 pounds. That's a huge guy on defense. And of course, as you said, with Rasmus Dahlin, that's going to be an extremely crucial pairing there that could actually win games for the Sabres finally. So this young Blue Liners defense is going to be with Rasmus Dahlin. He was the number 1 pick. Okay, Mattias Samuelsson, he was a number 32 pick in 2018, and Ryan Johnson, the number 131 pick in 2019. And, this quartet, they could be a top 4 defensive pair that can become the envy of the league. Like, a lot of teams would love to have this guy. But, I think that this is an easy pick to make. Number 2, the Seattle Kraken. All right, and I'm going to go here. I think that, I think what Ron Francis really has to do here is he's got to take Matthew Beniers. This is a good pick for the Seattle Kraken, and they can go in a number of directions right now. They only have 1 player signed on their team right now, and without the expansion draft even starting, I think this is an excellent pick to go with. Ron Francis has a history of choosing defensemen when it comes to the lottery. Going back to his days with the Hurricanes, selecting Beniers offers a Kraken a 2-way forward who stands out because, of his worth ethic and his commitment, as well as, someone like Dylan Guenther might be the more potent offensive option. However, Francis oversaw teams that made 2-way play a priority, and it's possible Benier could be the choice with the understanding that anything is plausible between now and when it comes to the time to make that 2nd overall pick and the 1st pick in franchise history. So I'm going to go with Matthew Beniers for the Seattle Kraken.
Great pick, Jay. And if I was Ron Francis, he can go in multiple directions here. He can go defense. He can go multiple longitudinal forwards. But I think Matthew Beniers is the perfect 2-way forward to build your team around. He plays the game at a 200-foot level. Hingham, Mass native. And this is the perfect guy to build your team around, And you look at how you want to build an organization. You have to find the identity. The Seattle Kraken don't have an identity yet. Matthew Beniers can establish that. Great 2-way player.
Yeah.
I think he's a safe pick. And I think he will be a Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, and he'll be the first pick in the franchise history for the Seattle Kraken. So history is being made at the draft this year. All right, the number 3 team that's going to pick is the Anaheim Ducks. I'll let Cam take that one.
This pick may surprise you. Anaheim could go in many different ways. They selected Jamie Drysdale, and they have Trevor Zegras up front, so a great forward and a great defenseman. For them, I think I'm going to go off the board a little bit here, and I think they'll select William Eklund, left winger. He's a really crafty player, really talented, playing in Sweden right now, and he's an extraordinary player, very talented, very crafty, very good and smart with the puck. I think he'll fit right in on the wing with Trevor Zegras. They play very similar games, and I think it would be a great pick for Bob Murray and the Anaheim Ducks.
You know, I'm going to disagree with you though. This is going to be very interesting for the head honchos here in Anaheim. I mean, you know, this is the only team to fall in the lottery. They'll likely miss out on adding a power to the blue line, you know, and they could also miss the opportunity to plug in Beniers if Seattle takes him. The fellow University of Michigan standout with a strong two-way game, as you said, and a persistent motor who would have a fit comfortably between Trevor Zegras on the Ducks' future center depth chart. They've long insisted that their draft motto is best player available. And, you know, but maybe this year is falling a spot isn't so tragic. Gunther did not, I'm going to go with Dylan Gunther here. That's my pick, by the way. But Gunther didn't get as many draft showings as others as a top. By the way, I wrote my analysis down, so I'm reading off of that. But 24 points in 12 WHL games with the Edmonton Oil Kings is pretty impressive, and honestly. And he has a good size, and he's equally adept at making plays for teammates or beating goalies from, you know, some margin of distance. The Ducks like their forwards to be well-rounded, and Gunther's work away from the puck will appeal to them, but they need offense for years to come. And, you know, with Power most assuredly gone by their selection, by the first overall pick, he'll be gone. It makes sense to continue beefing up the skill level up front, regardless who they pick, rather than going for a defensive guy. And not to also mention that Ryan Getzlaf is in the rumors of being traded right now. So, you know, if Ryan Getzlaf is to be traded, you know, the defense is still pretty strong. They got Cam Fowler, they got Kevin Shattenkirk out there. They've got big guys out there who can lead the team on defense in terms of veteran presence. So I think that Dylan Gunther would be a safe pick for the Anaheim Ducks here. But William Eklund is a good pick, by the way. I like that pick. You know, he's a Swedish sensation in my opinion, but, you know, it's a good pick overall. But I think that Dylan Gunther, in my opinion, is just going to be a bigger pick. Guys, in the comment section below, if you came to a conclusion between Dylan Gunther or William Eklund, fight it out, because I want to see your analysis for that one. But let's move on. Number 4 is the New Jersey Devils, and I'll kick this one off. So with the 4th pick, the Devils should select Luke Hughes, and they will have a reunion with Jack Hughes here, a brother reunion. So by sticking at number 4, you know, the Devils are guaranteed to land one of the top 4 defensemen in the class, by the way. That is an obvious area of need, and PK Subban cannot stop having poor defensemen playing on their team as they continue to struggle for the past 2 seasons them playing together to find good defense on a consistent level. They have not been able to do so, you know, and does that mean that this is the best player on the board will be a defenseman when it's their turn? In this scenario, they still have 3 of the big 4 left to choose from. You know, the youngest of the 3 Hughes brothers is an obvious connection, given that the older brother Jack is one of the 2 franchise players in the organization. This isn't strictly a nepotism pick, though. You know, Luke is bigger than Jack, and he's bigger than Quinn. He skates incredibly well and could absolutely blossom into the top pairing defenseman the Devils desperately need in the coming years. So with my 4th overall pick, I'm going with Luke Hughes.
Excellent choice. And it's quite obvious who I'm going to go with as well. Luke Hughes, 4th overall. Besides the amazing storyline reuniting Luke with Jack, you look at what the Devils need, and they need defense. You know, Hughes, Heischer are there as your 1-2 at center for the future. But right now on D, the only guy looking quite promising is probably Ty Smith. So adding a guy like Luke Hughes, he's an incredible player, and I think he could turn out to be the best Hughes brother out of all 3 of them there. But I think it's a no-brainer for New Jersey, and they're going to go with Luke Hughes, 4th overall, not just because of the storyline. I think that just makes extra special, but because New Jersey does need defense, and he's an incredible player.
Scenarios. But number 5 is the Columbus Blue Jackets, and Cam, I'll let you kick that one off.
And Columbus could go in many different ways. There is Ohio native Cole Sillinger on the board. He is from Columbus, but I don't think they'll go that way. in that direction, I think they're going to pick, I think, the best defenseman on the board, Brandt Clarke. He's a talented player, good two-way guy, plays great offensively, great defensively. And with rumors of Seth Jones, this is his last year on his contract, potentially him being shipped out of town, Brandt Clarke could come right in and in a couple of years play on the top pair with Zach Werenski. So I think it's a great pick and a no-brainer for Columbus.
I agree with you. My pick is a defenseman, but it is not Brandt Clarke. I'm going with Simon Edvinsson here. All right. And the reason why I am is because Columbus lacks a left-handed defenseman, while Brandt Clarke is a right-handed defenseman. And I do agree with you. Seth Jones, this is his last year on the contract. You know, he's probably likely to be traded during the course of this summer, but they could absolutely use some firepower up front, especially with the center position, you know, since they got rid of PLD and they got Laine back, a struggling Laine. But with Benier is off to Seattle, you know, Mason McTavish was a considerable choice at this position, but Edvinsson, I'm going for two reasons beyond the simple fact that he has an extremely good potential to become a good defenseman. One, because they're likely to trade Seth Jones, I just said, and two, that he plans to test free agency rather than get an extension. All right. So that leaves a gigantic hole in the Columbus Blue Jackets roster. I mean, one of their best defensemen in the franchise is going to leave this summer. So that is a bad place for the Blue Jackets to be in. You know, and the youngster that they have, their prospect, Andrew Peeke, is expected to be in the NHL next season. But, you know, beyond Peeke, the pipeline of defensemen is virtually void. It's empty of high-end talent. And Edvinsson is 6'4". He's 203 pounds. And he'll have the size of a good top pairing defenseman, drawing out to comparisons to another sizable Swede and Victor Hedman. And, you know, I think that he is literally just like Victor Hedman, but younger. So Simon Edvinsson, he's got the size, and I definitely think he's got the talent. So I'm going to go with Simon Edvinsson at pick number 5 for the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Great pick, Jay.
Yeah. Didn't you pick already? Or you already did, right?
Yeah, I did.
All right, so at number 6, it's the Detroit Red Wings. Now, since I think you went first, I'll go first now. I'm going to go here now. I'm going to go with William Eklund here. And, okay, at this point, the Red Wings need a bit of everything at this point here, right? I think they just need a bit of everything. And they have options to choose from at every position. They can go fishing for another goaltender. They can go fishing for defensemen, left wings, right wings, centers, whatever you need. I mean, this whole team has been absolutely manifested with disaster. And, you know, Eklund checks a lot of boxes as a strong skater with good hockey sense as well, who can make plays. Production wise, he outscored 2020 top 10 picks, including Lucas Raymond, which was Detroit's 4th overall pick, and Alexander Holtz this year in the SHL. And while Eklund is one of the smaller sizes at 5'10", he's regarded as a good competitor, which has been an important trait for the Red Wings' Stevie Yzerman, for, you know, trying to look for prospects he wants to potentially draft. And, you know, Eklund has played in the wing in the SHL, but he also has some experience playing center, and it's worth it for Detroit to at least try him there to see if he's able to play down the middle as a pro. But the Red Wings Swedish pipeline lives on forever. So I'm going to go with William Eklund here.
Hey, I mean, I could definitely see that happening. Continuing with the Swedish and chemistry with Detroit, I'm going with goaltender Jesper Wallstedt. Best goaltender in this draft class by a mile. I think, depending what the Red Wings believe, and if they believe he can be an elite goaltender in the National Hockey League, which I sure think he can be, I think they will certify their position in net and grab Jesper Wallstedt. I was thinking Simon Edvinsson with this pick, but I think Wallstedt in Detroit is a perfect fit for both of them.
So 7. All right. The 7 team is the San Jose Sharks. I'm going to let Cam kick that off here. And, you know, Cam, the San Jose Sharks are on the board. And who do you think should be picked at this point?
Yeah. Well, 7th overall, my pick I have San Jose taking is fallen. And I'm going with Dylan Guenther here. He's, I think, the best goal scorer in this draft. Great size, great shot. He's a tremendous offensive hockey player, and I think San Jose looking to kind of rebuild here, especially on the fly. Maybe a guy like Dylan Guenther could add to their very weak prospect pool. and he'd be their best prospect in that pool. Tremendous goal scorer. That's a no-brainer for San Jose if he's on the board.
That's a great pick, by the way. Again, I'm disagreeing with you, but my logic connects to yours. It's just a different player. You know, look, what you said was right about Dylan Guenther. You know, the Sharks, they're lacking a lot of true elite level prospects, right? In my opinion. So the Sharks should not be targeting any specific positions here in this draft at all. They should just go for the best player available, which could be Dylan Guenther. However, I took a different approach to this, you know. Still, a defenseman is probably preferable, you know, to forward. They should probably prefer a defenseman rather than a forward after they use all 9 of their picks on 8 centers, on either centers or wingers in 2020. And Clark is similar to Ryan Merkley, in that, you know, he's a right shot defenseman, but he's bigger than the 2018 first round pick who had an underwhelming first professional season with the AHL Barracuda. And, you know, while there was a temptation here to take one of the 2 goalies who could have ended up going in the first round, I just don't think the Sharks would go in that direction based on their history. And plus, their defense, I mean, look, the Sharks defense hasn't been so good that you have to say, oh, they have the top defenseman in the league, but you can't deny that, you know, Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson and Marc-Edouard Vlasic are still good defensemen overall. They're not terrible, you know, but they've all had their down years and they're probably all going to retire at some point. But they're not all bad. So I think that's why I'm going to go with Brandt Clarke here. And, you know, I think really that he's the best. He can be the next Brent Burns for this team. And I think they need new guys out there. They have an incredibly decent forward team. Their entire forwards are all good. I think it's just Brandt Clarke who's the defenseman they need to pick because, you know, they need younger defensemen on this team. So I'm going to go with Brandt Clarke here.
Good pick. So 8th is LA.
Yeah. I'll go first here. And I'm taking the Michigan guy here. And I'm going to go with Kent Johnson here. All right. They need a highly skilled winger. The Kings really need one to play along with Quinton Byfield. And, you know, I think Johnson could be the perfect complement to last year's number 2 draft pick, which was Quinton Byfield. It could take a couple of years for Byfield to get fully established in the NHL. And Johnson will also require some of that same time to develop. You know, in fact, one NHL scout pointed out to the media saying he, as in not Quinton Byfield, sorry, as in Kent Johnson, he's probably on the lower end of being physically ready and developed. However, you can't help but notice the level of skill and creativity that goes with him. So, you know, another potential option for the Kings, who are awash in draft picks, you know, at this point, would be able to maybe trade the selection as a piece of a much larger trade. To bring in the present day high-end NHL talent. But for now, the center is needed. You know, Anze Kopitar had a great year last year, but having another guy out there to possibly lead the team for the Kings would be even better. So I'm going to go with Kent Johnson. LA picks at number 8.
I could see it, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
And 8th pick, I think LA is starred for defense. Drew Doughty getting older and a lot worse. I mean, their defensive prospect pool kind of is pretty weak besides.
But none of them are willing to leave. I know that for a fact that Doughty wants the team to be rebuilt. He does not say he wants to be traded.
Oh, no, he's not going anywhere, especially with that terrible contract. But Simon Edvinsson would be a great pickup for LA. And with their defensive, I'm talking about their defensive prospect pool, Mikey Anderson, and they have another guy out there. But really, it's not compared to their forward prospect pool with Alex Turcotte, Quinton Byfield, Arthur Kaliev, Gabe Vilardi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A winger would help, but I think Edvinsson would give them the presence they need on the back end.
That's a great pick, by the way. I think I could have used that there. And, you know, guys, again, I don't think any of our draft picks are wrong because actually every single pick I've disagreed with Cam is my second choice, by the way. So that's actually kind of funny, but let's continue on here. The Vancouver Canucks are at number 9, and I'm going to go with Mason McTavish here. All right. And, you know, Jim Benning is a best player available absolute. All right. He goes for every player who is the best available on the slot. He doesn't care what position they are. If they have 5 centers and the best player on the board is a center, he's taking them and making them play winger. I mean, that's what he does. And, you know, he thinks that this draft class has a relatively solidified 9-player tier that becomes a bit more disparate and unpredictable from there. There's 9 guys we really like, Benning told The Athletic on Wednesday night following the results of the draft lottery, and we know nothing. And we know now we're going to get one of those 9 guys. So the Canucks in a bit of a read and react type of situation here in the draft order. They might want to go with McTavish here. And, he's the only guy remaining from that well-defined 9-player tier. And, he's gritty. He's intelligent. He possesses a lethal shot with scouts across the industry raving about him. And he has a great character. So we can see this guy being a future leader of the Vancouver Canucks. I see him to be another Bo Horvat, in my opinion, but a much, solidified Bo Horvat. But he is a pure leader on this team, and they need that. As a youngster, you having a pure leader is an absolute gift to the horse with a mouth, And I think that this is an absolute steal for the Canucks. I don't expect him to become a great player, but he's definitely going to be a great leader out on this team.
Yeah, everybody's raving about Mason McTavish's leadership game, and it's extraordinary. Great leader on and off the ice. But if they're going to go with the best player available, I think it's going to be Kent Johnson. And slipping on the wing with Elias Pettersson, Brock
And
Besser
JT
there.
Miller.
JT Miller's around, Bo Horvat. Now you got something brewing. Niles Hoglander. Now you got a pretty lethal top six.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Mason McTavish. I think Kent Johnson's the better player, and I think that's who Vancouver will select.
All right, guys, and our last pick of the night, the Ottawa Senators. They're picking at number 10, and let's let Cam wrap this one up for us.
I had a couple options. I was thinking Mason McTavish with this pick, but I'm going to go maybe a little bit off the board with Fabian Lysell. Really, really talented winger, and I think his ceiling's a lot higher than people think. So I'm thinking Ottawa goes off the board and picks up a highly skilled winger, maybe to put with Shane Pinto or fill up with their highly talented forward centers. You got Tim Stützle there. So Ottawa looking good. You can't go wrong with Mason McTavish, or you can't go wrong with Fabian Lysell. Jay?
I agree with you. They need a forward. I mean, they need to add some skill up on the front, but I'm going to go with Chaz Lucis here. Okay. And I think he should really fit the bill. He's described to be a natural goal scorer. He scored 13 goals in just 12 games with the U.S. National Team Development Program this past season. There might be some question marks around his skating ability, but he's got a knack for scoring clearly, and his shooting accuracy is just absolutely insane. That is raved about by scouts. He's committed to the University of Minnesota next season and can be a nice piece of the offensive puzzle in Ottawa, which this team is ready to contend down for the following years. And this team, forget about how young they are. Oh my God. In the next 4 years, seeing some of these guys' names and seeing how talented they were this season, like Artem Zub, for example, Drake Batherson, of course, Tim Stützle,
Josh Norris,
Shane Pinto. I mean, this team is just getting younger and younger, but you're going to get more scared when you realize that in 4 years, some of these guys are going to be so well, effective, and they're so well, they've grown to such well extent that this team is going to be a Stanley Cup contender very, very soon.
Yeah, they're unbelievable.
Well, guys, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, they're unbelievable.
Yeah,
absolutely
Ottawa,
insane.
Unbelievable prospect pool, especially on defense. I just rave about it. Thomas Chabot, Eric Brandstrom, Artem Zub. The list goes on and on. Jake Sanderson, Bernard Docker, Lassie Thompson. Okay, just unbelievable prospect core.
What happens if they try trading some of these guys away? That would be kind of weird, don't you think?
I don't know. They're not going to have room for everybody, but who knows who pans out? Who knows who won't? So I think that will be interesting to watch, and I'm excited to see who Ottawa selects. Final remarks?
Well, guys, that's it for today's podcast. It'll be really nice to see during the NHL draft what goes down. And, we are unfortunately sorry that we could not go through picks 11 through 15. However, to let you guys know, 11th is the Blackhawks, 12 is the Flames, 13 is the Flyers, 14 is the Stars, and 15 was a team that picked last year first overall, which is the Rangers. Now, we might think about giving our takes on those picks, but we really wanted to get down our first 10 because, the first 10 are the most interesting always to watch. But have a good night, everyone, and take care. Cam is going to watch the Bruins game as that is getting intense right now. It is 1-0 third period. And, so long from us, guys, and take care.
Take care, guys.